Beth huddled in the brick-lined entrance, listening to the serration of the light rain against the turrets and gargoyles overhead, feeling the bulk of the castle both holding out the night and pressing down on her. And she felt not unease, but a strange comfort. I could belong here, she thought. A few blocks away, the 5 freeway funneled traffic through Los Angeles, creating a perpetual roar. But tonight it blended pleasantly with the sound of the falling water. She knew the LA River was just beyond the freeway, efficiently channeling the rainwater through its man-made troughs until it reached Glendale, where a few short sections of nature had been negligently allowed to intrude, mud and wildlife replacing concrete. Although she couldn't see downtown from this, the northern side of the castle, the skyscraper's lights reflected off the drizzle and clouds, turning the night from black and deep gray. The sound, the smell of wet pavement, the glint of red stoplights on the streets, the feel of the cool, moist May air on her skin, all combined in Beth to elicit a tremble of pleasure. Here she was at the castle, that great brooding testament to the fact that Los Angeles actually did have a history, and Beth felt more at home here than she'd ever felt anywhere else in her life. She realized now that she'd never thought of her aunt's sunny little 2-bedroom house in Pasadena as home, even though she'd spent most of her life there. She knew that house as intimately as she knew her own eyes in the mirror, but she'd always felt somehow that the place didn't fit her. Perhaps because her eyes weren't the blue or green or gray ones of her neighbors. Her skin was half a shade too dark, her hair a glossy ebony, her last name Ortiz. And she sometimes felt just tolerated among the Carters and Johnsons and Smiths. But here, the castle felt like an extension of her. The attention was pulled away from the desolate, rainy, late-night industrial street in front of her as she heard 2 male voices raised in laughter inside the castle. Beth smiled and turned away, letting the security door close behind her, sealing the night out. She headed back down the short common hallway, around the corner, and through the open doorway into the small theater, nay, artist's loft. In the far back corner, Terry and Eric were bent over the dimmer board in the makeshift tech booth, giggling like schoolboys. When they saw her, they each raised a half-empty beer bottle in salute. "Are you kids done yet?" Beth asked. "It's almost 1, you know." The 2 men laughed again. Then Terry turned the dimmer board off as Eric sauntered up to her. At 6 feet, with auburn hair and straight dark brows, he was handsome enough to be an actor, but instead had felt directing was his true vocation. His eyes flashed, whether from drink or mischief or both, as he swaggered up to her, his charisma preceding him like a wave before a storm. They'd known each other since college, and she'd been his friend and confidant as he'd slept his way through a profusion of actresses, wannabe actresses, waitresses, and non-thespians. He'd had beauties, he'd had minor celebrities, and he'd had some who weren't as attractive as Beth, but he'd never so much as flirted with her. Beth was content with the situation. She saw how the women Eric slept with quickly drifted out of his life, while she'd been one of his best friends for nearly 10 years. She'd had her own affairs, of course, a few brief entanglements that had simply faded rather than truly ending, because ending them would have required more energy than she was willing to offer. Beth left her small loves, knowing little more about her erstwhile partners than she had before she met them, all while knowing Eric intimately. Beth liked being the woman he always came back to. She enjoyed subtly desiring him, and understood that the desire was probably far more pleasurable than the actual having would have been. Yet she couldn't help but wonder if he ever did proposition her, or, as Beth's friend Mickey had suggested, if either of them ever came to their senses, would she turn him down? She couldn't answer that. So here he came, and she saw that he was very drunk from the after-show party, and his smile was a little broader than usual. His walk closer to a stagger, and he stopped just before her as the grin fell away, revealing something more serious underneath. Beth held her breath, suddenly nervous. "We need to talk," he said. "I've got a big question for you." "Uh-oh," Beth answered, trying to sound amused. "Should I gird my loins?" Eric looked away, and Beth suddenly saw that he was unhappy. This wasn't about her, then, and she felt both disappointment and relief.